Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to a Monday evening Cercle de Langue conference lesson with myself, Alastair. And today we have a very interesting lesson indeed. We're going to think about the subjunctive in English, when and how to use it. It's an often misunderstood grammatical structure. This is true. Well, let's dive into it for today. And starting off, we're going to check our agenda for our conference today. Number 1, introduction to the subjunctive mood. Number 2, types of subjunctive and when to use it. Okay. And number 3, practical tips and exercises. Okay, well, welcome. Today we're going to explore a topic that requires knowledge of many grammatical tools, making it quite complicated. Therefore, from now on, we recommend that you take note of the rules and tips that you will find. Of course, you can also make screenshots of all the pages of the lesson, and at the end, after we stop recording, you can also put your email address into the chat, and I can send you that PDF a bit later on. So, an introduction to the subjunctive mood. So, a definition to start with. Now, most of the time, English follows a simple pattern. Let's have a look at these 3 examples. He works every day. This is the present simple verb tense. She studied yesterday. This is the past simple verb tense. They will come tomorrow. This is the future simple verb tense. Okay, so most of the time, active speech in English follows a simple pattern. Here we've got subject, verb, and an object. But when we enter the world of wishes, hypothetical situations, and formal language, the subjunctive breaks the rules. It doesn't behave like a normal verb tense. So, the subjunctive breaks the rules. It doesn't behave like a normal verb tense. So what is the subjunctive? Let's have a look at a definition. The subjunctive mood is a special verb form used to express hypothetical situations, wishes, demands, recommendations, or uncertainty. There are some key features. It does not always follow normal tense rules. It often appears in formal or old-fashioned expressions, and it is commonly triggered by certain verbs and phrases. We have a couple of examples here. I wish she were here. Hypothetical. It is important that he be on time. Recommendation. I wish she were here. It is important that he be on time. So imagine the subjunctive like an alternate reality. Think of it of a parallel universe in grammar. Instead of describing what is real, it describes what we wish were true, but it isn't, what someone demands, suggests, or insists on, or something that hasn't happened yet, and certain formal expressions that sound old-fashioned or official. So, what we wish were true, what someone demands, suggests, or insists on, and certain formal expressions. Now, There is a key rule. The subjunctive often uses the base form of the verb, so without the letter S in the third person singular, or were instead of was. So the subjunctive often uses the base form of the verb without S in the third person singular, or were instead of was. So when do we use the subjunctive? The subjunctive is used for wishes and hypothetical situations. If I were you. If I were you. The subjunctive is used for demands, orders, and strong expressions or suggestions. I insist that he leave immediately. The subjunctive is used for unreal conditions. If she were taller, she could be a model. So the subjunctive is used for wishes and hypothetical situations, demands, orders, and strong suggestions, and unreal conditions. So let's have a look. The subjunctive versus the indicative. Okay, so the indicative is the normal verb structure. The subjunctive versus the indicative. We have here a comparison chart. So please take a minute to analyse the examples of the chart. Now, within that table, we have two columns, the subjunctive and the indicative. Okay, so for each line, we have an example with the same verb. So the subjunctive, I suggest that he go. The indicative, he goes to work every day. The next line, subjunctive, if I were you, I'd travel more. The indicative, she was at the party last night. The last line, the subjunctive, it's important that she be here. She is here every morning. So the key difference between the subjunctive and indicative. The indicative expresses reality, while the subjunctive expresses possibilities, wishes, or hypotheticals, this parallel universe of grammar. Well, let's think now about types of subjunctive and when to use it. We'll start with the present subjunctive. Okay, so the structure. Well, we use the base form of the verb without the S in the third person singular because it's the base form, it's not conjugated. And it's usually introduced by the word that. Examples. I suggest that he go to the doctor, not goes. The teacher insists that she study harder, not studies. I suggest that he go to the doctor. The teacher insists that she study harder. Now, there are common verbs that trigger the subjunctive. For example, to suggest, demand, insist, recommend, request, order, propose, advise, and wish. These are common trigger verbs for the subjunctive. Okay, well, let's check the next screen here. We've got some more examples to help you come to grips with the subjunctive. I'm going to read through all of these twice. Okay, so have a listen. Here we go. I recommend that she be on time, not is. I recommend that she be on time. It is important that he stay focused, not stays. It is important that he stay focused. They demanded that the manager give them a refund, not gives. They demanded that the manager give them a refund. The coach insists that the player practice more, not practices. The coach insists that the player practice more, not practices. She suggested that he take a break, not takes. He suggested that he take a break, that she be on time, that he stay focused, that the manager give them a refund, that the player practice more, that he take a break. Okay, well, let's have a look at another part of the subjunctive, the past subjunctive, hypotheticals and wishes. So here's the structure. We use were for all subjects and often used with if or wish. Examples: if I were you, I would take the job. Not was. If I were you, I would take the job. She wishes she were taller. She wishes she were taller. So common triggers: if, as if, wish, suppose, imagine, would rather, it's time. So these are common triggers for the past subjunctive. So let's have a look at some vocabulary expansion. Expressions that require the subjunctive. It is essential that. It is necessary that. I suggest that. If I were you, I wish that. These are expressions that require the subjunctive. So, common mistakes and how to fix them. So, we'll start with some mistakes. The first one, incorrect. If she was rich, she would buy a mansion. The correct version is, if she were rich, she would buy a mansion. Okay, we have another incorrect sentence. He insists that she goes early. Okay, this is incorrect. Our correct sentence is, he insists that she go early. So those two correct sentences again. If she were rich, she would buy a mansion. He insists that she go early. Now we have a tip here. Always use the base form of the verb, also known as the bare infinitive, in the subjunctive. So always use the base form of the verb in the subjunctive. Unless it's a past subjunctive, of course. Okay. Types of subjunctive and when to use it. The I wish rule for unreal situations. When we talk about wishes or things that aren't real, we use were instead of was. So when we talk about wishes or things that aren't real, we use were instead of was. I wish I were a millionaire, but I'm not. I wish I were a millionaire. If she were taller, she could be a model, but she isn't tall. If she were taller, she could be a model. I wish it was sunny today, but it's raining. I wish it were sunny today. Okay, so we've got another alarm there at the bottom. Not, I wish I was a millionaire. This sounds incorrect in formal English. I wish I were a millionaire. I really do. Okay. Well, here's another rule. It's called the bossy verbs rule for demands and requests. When someone demands, insists, or recommends something, we skip the normal verb rules and use the base form. The teacher insists that she be on time, not is. The teacher insists that she be on time. I suggest that he go to the doctor, not goes. I suggest that he go to the doctor. The law requires that every driver wear a seatbelt, not wears. The law requires that every driver wear a seatbelt. Okay, we have another rule here. It's called the fancy expressions rule. Quite often fixed phrases. So some phrases always use the subjunctive, even though we don't think about it. For example, God save the king. Heaven forbid. Long live the Queen. And in formal legal English, if it please the court. Okay, now these sound dramatic or old-fashioned, but they are classic subjunctive forms, still commonly used in modern language. Okay, well, let's continue. So the subjunctive in everyday conversations. Let's have a look at perhaps some more everyday phrases. I suggest that you take a break. Okay, I suggest that you take a break. If I were you, I'd talk to him. It's important that he be on time. So I suggest that you take a break. If I were you, I'd talk to him. It's important that he be on time. Okay, we have another tip at this moment in the lesson. The subjunctive sounds formal, but is still used in academic, business, and legal English. So here we go then into the final part of today's lesson, practical tips and exercises. So how to spot the subjunctive in real life. So let's think about those common triggers once again. If I were, an unreal situation. I wish, an imaginary situation. It's important that, this is a demand, and the law requires that. Formal. And let's put some into real life examples. Okay, if I were you, I would take the train instead of driving. My boss insists that I be at the meeting at 9 a.m. It is essential that she practice her speech before presenting. So if I were you, I would take the train instead of driving. My boss insists that I be at the meeting by 9 a.m. It is essential that she practice her speech before presenting. Okay, now we have a question in the chat. When you use if, do you also use the conditional tense? Well, there are 4 fixed conditionals, and then there are a number of mixed conditionals as well. They're not strictly verb tenses. They quite often use modal verbs to create the condition. But if we use if followed by the verb to be in the past, we use were. So if I were, but if is a common conditional sentence structure word. Okay, but it's not an obligation. Okay, it's not an obligation. So let's check a final trick. When in doubt, check these 2 things. Does the sentence sound hypothetical or bossy? Does it use were or the base form of a verb. So does the sentence sound hypothetical or bossy? Does it use were or the base form of a verb? If yes, you're dealing with the subjunctive. Okay. So we've got a mini quiz for you guys just to practice in the chat if you like. Okay. So we've got 5 sentences, and for each sentence we want to choose the correct form of the verb. So the first sentence, if he was or were taller, he could play basketball. The teacher insists that she studies or study harder. It is necessary that he be or is present. If I was or were rich. Oh, sorry, I wish I was or were rich. It is important that he be or is on time. Okay, well, we're getting lots of different, getting lots of answers in the chat, so wonderful. Well done for your participation. Everyone's having a go, which is great. So I think you all seem to have understood how this works. So let's check our verification. If he were taller, he could play basketball. The teacher insists that she study harder. It is necessary that he be present. I wish I were rich. It is important that he be on time. So very good. Good job, everybody. You're all showing a good understanding of this subjunctive. If we look at your answers in the chat. So well done, everybody. Okay. Well, we do have a conclusion for today. The subjunctive mood helps express wishes, hypothetical situations, formal requests, and traditional phrases. Though less common in everyday speech, it's essential for politeness and precision in English. Remember, were for unreal situations. Okay, if I were you. Base form for requests. I suggest that he go. Fixed expressions. God bless you. So mastering the subjunctive adds clarity and elegance to your English. So keep an eye out for it, and soon it will feel natural. Okay, guys. Well, we have come to the end of our conference lesson today. Thank you so much from myself and everybody here at the Cercle de Langue team. It's great to have had you here to attend our lesson for today, but that is it. So I will say goodbye, and I hope to see you all here again this time next week.